After my shift, my supervisor asked me to step into his office. An HR printout was already on the desk. He said, "Explain this." And I knew someone had set me up. Seattle in January is all rain and fluorescent light. I'd been on my feet since before dawn at the distribution center, covering call-outs and smoothing over problems that weren't mine. I should have been thinking about dinner, about my dad's meds, about whether the heater in the apartment would keep coughing like it did. Instead, I was staring at my own name, bold at the top of a paper I'd never seen before. Derek, my operations lead, stood near the window like he needed distance from whatever was written there. His badge lanyard was twisted around his fingers tight enough to go white at the knuckles. "Ethan," he said carefully, "HR wants a statement." The printout wasn't dramatic. Corporate language, time stamps, a few clipped lines that felt like cuffs. One sentence was highlighted, and my throat tightened as if I'd swallowed sand. At the bottom, in that polite font that makes bad news look clean, it read, "Please be prepared to discuss the allegation and any supporting information you may have. Do not delete relevant communications." "I don't understand," I said, because anything louder would become part of the record. Derek slid his phone across the desk. A calendar invite was open. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., HR Conference Room B. "They already pulled footage," he added, and the way he avoided my eyes told me he'd watched it. My fingers went cold. "Footage of what?" He didn't answer that. He just said, "Read it again. Then tell me what you want me to say." The air in the office smelled like stale coffee and that citrus cleaner they used in the hallways. I noticed little things that shouldn't matter. Derek's wedding ring missing, the faint red mark on his neck like a collar had rubbed. My brain grabbed those details because it didn't want to touch the bigger thing. Someone had fed HR a story about me, and it was already shaped like truth. My pocket buzzed. Leah. I didn't pick up. Leah could take fear and turn it into rules, and rules into punishments. Like control was the only thing that kept her upright. With my dad living with us after his stroke, our apartment had become a rotating triage unit. Pills, appointments, insurance calls. So Leah's rules always sounded like she was being responsible. It never sounded like love anymore. Leah texted, "Where are you? Don't lie." I typed the smallest truth I could, leaving work now. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Good. Come straight home." When I left Derek's office, the warehouse felt different. Same conveyors, same beeping forklifts, but the air had a new texture, like everyone could smell trouble. I tried to swipe my badge at the exit turnstile. Red light. 1 flat beep. I swiped again. Red light. Another beep, louder in my head than it was in the building. A security guard glanced over from his stool. Not a big reaction, just a look that said, "I've been told to watch you." He walked toward me slowly, like he had all the time in the world. "System's probably lagging," I muttered, forcing a laugh that sounded wrong in my own ears. He didn't laugh back. He tapped a code, the gate clicked open, and he held it for me without meeting my eyes. That quiet courtesy was the worst part. Outside, rain slapped the asphalt hard enough to bounce. I got into my car and just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, watching the windshield fog from my breathing. A notification lit up on my screen. Our coworker group chat. "Marcus, bro, HR was in the break room asking about you." "Tasha, they asked who you hang with after shift." Someone reacted with a skull emoji. Someone else with a praying hands emoji. I stared until the screen dimmed. Traffic crawled along I-5, brake lights smeared by rain. I passed a strip mall with a 24-hour pharmacy and thought about the pill organizer on our kitchen counter, the one Leah refilled every Sunday like it was a ritual that proved she was the strongest person in the room. My parents had raised me with that Filipino idea you don't abandon family, you absorb the weight. Leah used to say she admired it. Lately, it felt like she resented that my family needed me at all. My phone buzzed again. A missed call from Leah. Then another text. "Did you talk to Derek?" My thumb hovered. That name in her mouth hit wrong. Too quick, too specific. I hadn't told her I'd been in Derek's office. I hadn't told anyone. I didn't answer. I told myself it was coincidence. I told myself Leah just guessed because Derek was my boss, but the thought stuck like gum on a shoe. When I pulled into our apartment lot in Northgate, Leah was waiting under the awning. Hair pulled tight, arms crossed, face already set. Behind the lobby glass, my mom's silhouette hovered, small and still like she was trying not to take up space. Jonah, my younger brother, was there too, leaning against the mailboxes, jacket still on like he'd come to check on Dad, but really came to check on me. Leah didn't ask if I was okay. She looked at my hands. "What's that?" "Work," I said. "Work doesn't send you home with secrets." She stepped closer, calm in a way that meant she'd already decided I was guilty of something. "Give it to me." "Leah." "Give it to me, Ethan." I unfolded the paper right there by the lobby door, rain blowing in, a neighbor lingering at the mailboxes pretending not to listen. Leah read fast. When she hit the highlighted line, her face twitched, just a flicker, like a slap she couldn't dodge. "Tomorrow morning," she said. "HR." "I didn't do what they're saying," I told her. She finally met my eyes. "Then why does it read like you did?" My mom opened the lobby door softly. "A knock," she murmured. "Come inside. Your father is sleeping." Leah didn't look at her. She glanced past me, over my shoulder, like she expected someone else to appear. Like she expected Derek. Upstairs, the living room smelled like Vicks and reheated rice. Dad slept in the recliner with a blanket tucked under his chin, TV whispering. A half-empty coffee mug sat on the armrest. The pill organizer was on the counter, lids open, a couple of tablets waiting like tiny teeth. Jonah's eyes went straight to the paper. "What's going on?" "It's HR," Leah said, and the word hit the room like a dropped pan. Jonah's face changed. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," I snapped, and Dad stirred, eyelids fluttering. Leah lifted her phone and, quick as a card trick, turned the screen away from me even as she angled it toward Jonah. A tiny gesture, but it landed like betrayal. "Don't," I said. "I'm not hiding anything," Leah replied. "I'm being careful." My mom stood in the kitchen doorway, hands clasped, watching her sons and her daughter-in-law like she'd been handed a live wire. Dad shifted, the coffee mug tipped, and a thin brown line spilled down the recliner arm. This was the kind of moment you could freeze into a single frame. Leah on the right with her phone glowing in her hand, Jonah half standing by the table, my mom in the background with her mouth pressed tight, and me in the middle holding the HR printout like a confession I couldn't make. "You're not going alone," Leah said. "I have to," I said. "It's my job." "It's our life," she corrected, "and if you're lying to me, I'll find out before HR does." "I'm not lying." She didn't argue. She just went quiet. That was her favorite weapon. Silence that made you talk until you bled. My phone buzzed again. Not Leah this time. An email notification, subject line visible on my lock screen. HR. Evidence submission received. My stomach dropped. Leah saw it too. Her eyes flicked down, then up, sharp as a blade. "Evidence," she repeated like she'd been expecting that exact word. Jonah's hands hovered in the air, unsure whether to reach for my phone or step away from the blast radius. My mom made a small sound, like a prayer stuck in her throat. And in that stretched, suffocating silence, I realized someone had just sent HR new evidence tonight while I was driving home. The next morning, Seattle looked like it was made of wet concrete. The sky sat low over the freeway, and the rain didn't fall so much as it pressed down. Leah was already dressed when I came into the kitchen. Hair tight, lips bare, that calm, controlled face that meant she'd been awake for hours running scenarios in her head. My mom stood at the sink, rinsing rice, pretending not to listen. Jonah leaned on the counter with his arms crossed like he was there to protect me and also to judge me at the same time. Dad's recliner creaked behind us when he shifted in his sleep. Leah slid a travel mug toward me. "Drink. You'll talk better if you're not shaky." "I'm not shaky," I said, and my voice betrayed me. She kept her eyes on my phone as it charged near the toaster. "You're not driving alone." "I told you." "I heard you." She didn't raise her voice. That was the point. And I said no. Jonah looked between us like he was watching a tennis match. My mom's hands paused under the faucet for half a second, then moved again, water hissing louder in the silence. Leah's phone lit up on the counter. She flipped it face down instantly, the same reflex she'd used last night. I caught a flash of the notification header before it disappeared. Not the name, just the preview line. "We'll talk after..." A small thing. A nothing thing. But my stomach still turned. We drove to work in Leah's car because she insisted, her hands white on the steering wheel. She kept the heat too high. The windows fogged, so she had to wipe them with her sleeve, leaving a clear streak that looked like a blade through the blur. "Whatever they accuse you of," she said, "you stay calm. You don't get emotional. You don't make jokes. You don't..." "I know how to talk to HR," I cut in. She glanced at me. "Do you?" That one sentence hit like she'd been saving it, like she'd been waiting for a reason to say it for months. In the parking lot, my badge still didn't work. The same red light, the same flat beep. A different guard this time, younger, trying too hard to look neutral. He opened the gate and walked beside me all the way to the lobby like I was a guest who couldn't be trusted with directions. The HR hallway smelled like printer toner and lemon disinfectant. Conference room B had a glass wall, which felt intentional. Nothing hidden, nothing private. 2 chairs on my side of the table like they'd already decided someone would be sitting next to me. Leah took the seat before I could. Derek came in with HR. Not just one HR person, 2. A woman with a smooth, bright smile that didn't reach her eyes, and a man with a tablet who never looked up. Derek sat on the other side, posture rigid, hands folded like he was in church. Another manager I barely knew took the corner seat, and a security supervisor stood near the door, arms crossed, like an exclamation point. 5 people against me and Leah, and the glass walls so anyone walking by could glance in and tell the whole building. This guy is in trouble. The HR woman introduced herself like we were about to have a team-building meeting. "Ethan, thanks for coming in. Leah, thank you for joining as a support person." Support person. Like I was sick. She slid a folder toward me. Inside was the same printout, plus new pages. "We received additional evidence last night through our submission portal," she said, and I felt Leah's shoulders stiffen beside mine. "We're going to review the concerns, then give you a chance to respond." The man with the tablet tapped once and a small speaker on the table chimed. A recorded message played. Someone's voice, muffled, like it had been captured in a pocket. "Just put it through the account. No one's going to check." Then a second voice, clearer, lower, familiar enough that my skin prickled. Derek's voice. "Not here," the recording said. "We'll handle it after." The HR woman watched my face carefully, like she was reading a lie detector. "Do you recognize either voice?" I couldn't speak for a beat. My mouth was dry. Leah's knee pressed into mine under the table, not comforting, pinning. I don't know," I said, and it sounded weak even to me. Derek didn't look at me. He stared at the tabletop like it was a moral test. The HR man swiped on his tablet and turned it so I could see. A still image from security footage. The warehouse corridor outside the finance office. A man in a company hoodie, my build, my height, standing by the door. The face was half hidden by the brim of a cap. The timestamp was from last week, a night I'd stayed late. "That's not me," I said immediately. Leah made a tiny sound beside me. Not disbelief, something sharper, like recognition. "Ethan," the HR woman said, "we're not here to debate feelings. We're here to establish facts. We have footage, we have an audio clip, and we have a screenshot of communications that suggest coordination." A screenshot slid onto the table, printed and slightly blurry like someone had rushed it. It was a text thread. The numbers were cropped. The names were partially blocked except one letter that wasn't fully covered. D. The messages were short, cold, confident. 9 p.m., side door. "Don't use your badge. I'll fix it after." My pulse started hammering. This is fake. The HR man finally looked up, eyes flat. "Do you have any reason to believe someone would fabricate evidence against you?" Yes, I thought. Too many reasons. But the moment I tried to name one, I'd sound paranoid, or desperate, or guilty. Leah's hand slid over my wrist under the table, but it wasn't tender. Her nails dug in, a quiet warning. "Don't say something stupid." The HR woman leaned forward. "We also need to address workplace conduct concerns involving boundaries and conflicts of interest." Conflicts of interest. The words landed heavy, like they had a second meaning I couldn't see yet. Derek's jaw clenched. He finally glanced at me just once, eyes hard and unreadable. Then he looked away again. "We're placing you on administrative leave effective immediately," the HR woman said. "This is non-disciplinary pending investigation. You will not access company systems. Do not contact coworkers about this matter. You will be contacted regarding next steps." My tongue went numb. Administrative leave sounded polite, but in my world it meant your life is about to get cut into pieces. It meant insurance. It meant rent. It meant my dad's prescriptions. Leah's breathing changed beside me, sharp, controlled, like she was counting. I could already feel her turning this into a new set of rules. The security supervisor opened the door. "I'll walk you out." Walk you out, like I was a thief. In the hallway, people pretended not to look, but they did. Their eyes flicked like windshield wipers. Derek stayed behind in the room with HR. The glass wall made it worse. I could see his silhouette through it, head bowed, hands still folded. When we got to the elevator, Leah's phone buzzed again. She didn't flip it over this time. She saw the screen and her face shifted, just a fraction, before she locked it and shoved it into her coat pocket. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." "Leah." She stared straight ahead as the elevator doors opened. I said nothing. Outside, rain had turned into a thin, icy mist. The guard walked away once we hit the parking lot like his job was done. Leah moved fast, almost dragging me toward her car. Her jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jump. As she unlocked the door, something fell from her pocket onto the wet pavement. A small slip of paper, already damp at the edges. I bent and grabbed it before the wind could take it. It was a visitor badge sticker, white with a timestamp printed in black. The ink was smeared but still readable enough to punch air out of my lungs. Visitor. Checked in. 9:12 p.m. Host. Derek M. I stared at it while Leah froze with the driver's door half open like a statue caught mid-motion. "You were here last night," I said quietly. Her eyes flicked to the badge in my hand, then away, then back again. For the first time all morning, she looked like she didn't have a script. "I can explain," she said. And the way she said it, too practiced, too late, felt like the first real crack in the life I thought I knew. I didn't move for a second. The badge sticker lay in my palm, damp and curling at the corners like it wanted to dissolve before it could testify. Leah stood by the driver's door, rain beating on her lashes, breathing too controlled. "You were here last night," I repeated, quieter this time. "At 9. Leah's eyes sharpened. "Give me that?" "No." Her hand shot out anyway. Not a grab, more like a reflex, the same instinct she had when she flipped her phone away from me. I closed my fist and she stopped herself at the last inch like she remembered we were in public. "I came because you were spiraling," she said, "because you wouldn't answer me, because I needed to know what was happening." "With Derek," I said. She exhaled through her nose like I was being childish. "He's your boss. HR was involved. He said it would look better if someone else could confirm you weren't alone in the building last week." My throat tightened. "Confirm what?" Leah's jaw worked. She had an answer ready, but it didn't fit the question. "Ethan, do you want to fix this or do you want to accuse me in a parking lot?" That was the move. Turn my fear into a nuisance. Turn my questions into a character flaw. We drove home with the heater blasting again. Leah kept her hands at 10 and 2 like she was taking a driving test. My wet hoodie smelled like the warehouse, cardboard dust and cold metal. I stared out the window at the blurred storefronts and tried to remember what my life had been a week ago, before my name became a folder in HR. In the apartment, my mom was on the couch with Dad's blood pressure cuff wrapped around his arm. Jonah hovered behind her, watching the numbers climb and drop like it was stock market ticker. The TV murmured in Tagalog from some old drama my mom liked because it filled the room with voices that weren't ours. Dad looked up when we came in. His smile arrived late, as if it had to travel through fog to reach his face. "A knock," he whispered, and then his gaze slid to Leah's expression and his smile fell away. My mom stood immediately, as if our problems had a weight she could physically lift. "What happened?" "Administrative leave," I said. The words tasted like metal. Jonah's eyes widened. "You got suspended." "Pending investigation," Leah corrected, too quickly, like she wanted ownership of the narrative. "It's temporary." My mom pressed her hand to her chest, then forced it down. "What are they saying you did?" I didn't answer right away because saying it out loud made it more real. "They're saying I coordinated something," I finally managed. "They have footage, audio, text screenshots." Dad's fingers twitched against the blanket. The blood pressure cuff hissed, and the machine beeped like it didn't care that our world was cracking. Leah walked straight to the kitchen counter and started moving things without looking at anyone. The pill organizer, the travel mugs, the crumpled grocery receipt by the toaster. It was how she dealt with stress. Control the objects when you can't control the truth. I set my keys down, then the visitor badge sticker beside them like it was evidence in a trial. "Explain this," I said. Leah froze for half a second, then turned with that calm face again. "I already did." Jonah leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "That's a visitor pass. Why would you need a visitor pass for his work?" "Because security," Leah snapped. "Because they didn't want me wandering around. Because I don't work there." "You were there at night," I said. 9:12. My mom looked between us like she was watching two knives argue. "Leah," she said softly. "Why, at night?" Leah's eyes flashed. "Because your son wouldn't tell me the truth." There it was again. The blame laid neatly at my feet like a folded towel. "I told you the truth," I said. "I was leaving work. I was driving home." Leah stepped closer and lowered her voice, the way she did when she wanted the room to shrink around me. "You think I don't know how these things work? Men get accused at work and then they come home with half stories. I'm protecting our family." "Our family," Jonah echoed, bitter. "You mean you?" Leah whipped her head toward him. "Don't you start." He didn't back down. "You've been acting weird for months. You track his location like he's a teenager. You tell him not to talk to his friends. You get mad when he takes his dad to physical therapy without you." "That's not what this is about," Leah said, but her voice rose anyway. "It is," I said. "It's always about who gets to decide what I'm allowed to do." Leah turned on me. "Allowed? Ethan, you're on leave. We have rent. Your dad's meds. You think you get to be dramatic right now." Dad coughed, a wet, rattling sound that made my chest seize. My mom rushed to his side, rubbing his shoulder. The machine beeped again, louder, then flashed a number that made her face go pale. "Jesus," Jonah muttered, and he was suddenly moving, grabbing the blood pressure machine, looking for the manual like it could explain how to keep a man alive. I stepped toward Dad, but Leah caught my sleeve. Not gently. Her fingers dug in like a clamp. "Not yet," she hissed. "You'll stress him out." The quiet horror of that hit me, my wife physically stopping me from going to my own father in my own living room, while my mother's hands shook. "Let go," I said. Leah's eyes stayed locked on mine. "If you make a scene, it'll look like you're unstable. You need to think. Think. Always think. Always calculate what the world will assume about me. Never feel." I pulled my arm free. The visitor badge sticker slid off the counter and fluttered to the floor near Dad's recliner like a white leaf. My phone buzzed, and in the middle of my mother's frantic whispering and Jonah's swearing under his breath, the vibration sounded obscene. An email. Subject: HR. Reminder: non-retaliation and communication policy. Under it, a text from an unknown number that made my stomach twist. "Stop asking questions. You're making it worse." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Leah saw my face and reached for my phone. I turned it away, and she went still in that way that meant she was counting again. Dad wheezed, trying to inhale around something heavy. My mom's voice cracked as she said my name. Jonah was already pulling on his shoes, yelling that he was calling an ambulance. Leah didn't look at Dad. She didn't look at my mom. She looked at my phone like it was a weapon she needed to disarm. "Who is that?" she demanded. "I don't know," I said, and for the first time in a long time, I heard how true that was about everything. Leah's phone buzzed on the counter. She grabbed it fast, but not fast enough. The screen lit up with a preview line before she could hide it. "Derek, you need to calm him down. Now." The room didn't get louder. It got quiet in the worst way, like everyone's body understood something before their mouth could admit it. Jonah stopped mid-step and stared at Leah. My mom stared at the phone in Leah's hand like it was a snake. Leah's face went blank, then hard, then carefully neutral again, like she was putting a mask back on. And I realized Derek wasn't just my boss in this story. He was in my living room, too. The paramedics arrived fast, bright jackets slick with rain, their boots leaving dark prints across our entryway. The living room turned into a stage I didn't ask for. My dad wheezing in the recliner, my mom crying without sound, Jonah pacing like a caged animal, and Leah on the right side of it all, phone in her hand, face set, already managing what would be said out loud and what would never be said. One paramedic knelt by Dad, fingers on his wrist, calm voice cutting through the panic. Another opened a bag on our coffee table and pulled out a pulse ox, a blood pressure cuff, little plastic packets that looked too small to matter. Dad's eyes fluttered toward me and I stepped forward, but Leah shifted with me, shoulder to shoulder, as if she could physically redirect where I was allowed to stand. "Let me talk," she murmured, and then louder to the paramedic. "He had a stroke last year. He's on meds. He gets anxious. Please, he can't handle stress." Stress. Like it was weather. Like it was nobody's fault. Jonah snapped, "Maybe he can't handle being used as a prop while you text my brother's boss." Leah didn't even look at him. She angled her screen away from everyone while still typing, thumb moving like a metronome. The glow from her phone lit her cheekbone and made her eyes look colder than they were. The paramedic asked for Dad's medication list. My mom reached for the pill organizer with shaking hands. She held it out to Leah first, out of habit, like Leah was the manager of our whole household. Leah took it without thanking her. I watched my mother's shoulders sag, just a fraction. This was the kind of frozen frame you could cut into a thumbnail and people would feel it instantly. My mom in the background with her hands half raised, the open pill organizer on the counter, Jonah leaning forward with fury in his face, Dad being lifted onto a stretcher, and Leah on the right side. Phone bright in her hand, jaw clenched, not looking at Dad at all. When they rolled Dad out, the rain slapped the stretcher canopy like impatient fingers. I grabbed my keys. Leah grabbed my arm. "You're not driving," she said. "I'm going to the hospital," I said, pulling away. "You're going with Jonah," she corrected. "I'll take your mom." That should have sounded reasonable. It didn't. It sounded like assignments. On the way to Northwest Hospital, Jonah drove like he was chasing something he couldn't see. My phone buzzed in my pocket again and again, but I didn't look until we stopped at a red light. A voicemail icon. Unknown number. I put it on speaker because my hands were shaking too much to hold the phone to my ear. A man's voice, low and tight, rushed through the static. "Ethan, stop making this loud. You want to keep your job? You keep your mouth shut. Do not talk to anyone. Do you hear me?" Then the line clicked dead. Jonah stared at me like I'd just pulled a gun out of my coat. "That's Derek," he said immediately. "It could be anyone," I lied. "No," Jonah said, jaw flexing. "That's him. I've heard him on speaker when you're on your stupid conference calls." My stomach rolled. The quiet horror wasn't just the threat. It was the confidence in it. Like he could speak to me that way because he'd already decided I belonged to him. At the hospital, the lobby smelled like antiseptic and wet umbrellas. Fluorescent lights flattened everyone into pale versions of themselves. Leah arrived minutes after us, my mom trailing behind her like a shadow. Leah's hair was damp at the edges, but her face was perfectly composed, like she'd had time to rehearse. She walked straight to the desk and spoke to the receptionist before any of us could. Her hand rested on the counter, wedding ring catching the light. Her phone was still in her other hand. The receptionist looked up at me. "Are you Ethan Santos?" I nodded. She lowered her voice. "Someone called ahead about a situation, a workplace incident." My blood went cold. "Who called?" The receptionist glanced at Leah, then away. "A manager. He said he was trying to help." Leah didn't flinch. "We're here for my father-in-law," she said smoothly. "That's all." I waited until we were down a quieter hallway before I spoke. "Did you call Derek?" Leah stopped walking and turned to me like I'd stepped out of line. "I called who I had to call," she said, "because you weren't thinking." "I'm thinking," I said. "I'm finally thinking." Jonah made a sound like a laugh with no humor. My mom pressed her palm to her mouth, eyes glossy as if she was trying to hold her worry inside her body. Dad was admitted for observation. The doctor said words like exacerbation and monitoring and likely triggered by exertion. But his eyes kept flicking to our faces like he could tell the real trigger was standing right there in the hallway. When the doctor left, Leah watched the nurses, watched the camera in the corner, watched the world like it was a courtroom. She pulled me aside near the vending machines where the hum was loud enough to swallow half a conversation. "Listen," she said, "HR is going to call you today. When they do, you say one sentence. I deny all allegations and I will cooperate. That's it." "I say what's true," I replied. "That is true," she snapped and then softened instantly like she remembered softness was part of the costume. "Ethan, we can't afford pride. We can't afford a meltdown." "You mean I can't afford to embarrass you," I said. Her eyes flashed. "I mean you can't afford to ruin us." I didn't answer. I was staring at her phone again, the way it kept living in her hand like a second pulse. When she walked away to speak to my mom, I did something I'm not proud of. I watched her. Not like a husband watching his wife, but like a man watching a stranger who'd moved into his life wearing his wife's face. She stepped into an empty alcove near the stairwell and lifted her phone to her ear. I couldn't hear words, but I could see her posture change. Shoulder relaxing, head tilting, a softness that hadn't been for me in months. Then her free hand went up to her mouth, covering a smile that looked private. I felt something hot crawl up my neck. Jonah saw it too. He leaned close and whispered, "You gonna keep pretending?" "I don't know what I'm seeing," I said, and hated myself for still trying to protect the illusion. My phone buzzed again. An HR email this time. Subject line clean and cheerful. Check-in. Administrative leave guidelines. Inside, it was all policy language until the last line. "We have been informed there may be potential intimidation of witnesses. Please refrain from contacting management outside official channels." Intimidation. Witnesses. Management. Those words weren't about the warehouse anymore. They were about my life. I turned my phone over in my hands and realized something else. Leah had always been the one who organized everything. Bills, passwords, appointments. When she said, "I'm protecting us," she meant, "I control the switches." That night back home, while Leah put my mom to bed in the guest room and Jonah stayed at the hospital with Dad, I sat at our kitchen table alone. The apartment was too quiet without the TV, without Dad's wheeze, without my mother's soft footsteps. Just the refrigerator clicking and the rain tapping at the window. Leah's laptop was on the counter. I didn't touch it. I wasn't trying to become that guy, but her iPad was plugged in by the microwave, screen dark, and when I tapped it, it lit up with notifications she hadn't cleared. My chest tightened as I read the top one. Derek M. He's starting to connect dots. Handle it. Under it, another message thread with a contact saved as Cassie PTA, Leah's friend from the school volunteer circle we'd been pulled into because it looked good to be involved. Cassie, don't worry, I already told everyone he's unstable. Keep the moms close. Then, like a punch, a third notification from a number with no name. 9-12 was sloppy. Don't leave stickers. I stared at the screen until my vision tunneled. This wasn't one problem. This was a web. A social war being fought while I was still trying to convince myself I was married. The front door opened softly. Leah stepped inside, shaking rain off her coat, and froze when she saw the light from the iPad reflecting on my face. For a second, her mask slipped. Not guilt exactly. Calculation. Like she was measuring how much I'd seen and how much she could deny. She walked toward me slowly, eyes fixed on the iPad. "Ethan," she said, voice almost gentle. "Put that down." "I didn't open it," I said, even though we both knew that wasn't the point. She reached for the device with the same quick, practiced motion she'd used with her phone. I pulled it closer to my chest. Her face hardened. "You're crossing a line." I laughed once, sharp and ugly. "Me?" Leah's phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't check it. She didn't need to. She already knew who it was. Then the iPad, still in my hands, pinged again. An incoming FaceTime request. The name on the screen made my stomach drop so hard it felt like falling. Derek M. Leah's eyes snapped to mine, and for the first time all day, she looked scared. Not of losing me, but of losing control. The FaceTime request kept pulsing on the iPad like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. Derek M. Leah stood there with her coat still damp, eyes locked on the screen like it was a grenade. "Don't answer," she said, voice low. "Please, not like this." "Not like what?" I asked. My mouth felt numb, but my hands didn't move. I held the iPad close to my chest, the glow lighting up the kitchen tiles and the crumpled grocery receipt by the toaster. "Not where I can hear him?" She took one step closer. "Ethan, you're going to make it worse." That sentence, again, always worse, never true, never clear. The iPad rang a third time. I hit accept before my courage could evaporate. Derek's face filled the screen, too close like he'd leaned into his camera on purpose. His office light was harsh, washing him out. His tie was loosened. Behind him, the blinds were half closed, the dark outside reflecting the screen back at him like a second ghost. He saw me, and he saw Leah, because she was right there in frame. His expression shifted in a way that made my stomach twist. Relief first, then annoyance, then control snapping back into place. "Ethan," he said, calm as if we were discussing next week's schedule. "This is not the way to handle it." "Why are you calling my wife?" I heard myself say. My voice was steadier than I felt. Leah's jaw tightened. "Stop. Don't." Derek kept talking like she hadn't spoken. "You're on leave. The company has rules. HR has rules. I'm trying to keep you from burning your whole life down." "You told her to calm me down," I said. I could taste metal again, like in the HR room. "You texted her that." Derek's eyes flicked, just a dart to Leah. The tiniest check-in. The kind you do with someone you're used to coordinating with. Leah said quickly, "He's confused. He's stressed. He—" "Don't speak for me," I snapped, and she flinched like I'd slapped her. Derek's voice stayed smooth. "Nobody's accusing you of being a bad person, Ethan. We're saying the situation is serious. The evidence looks bad. So we need you to stop doing whatever this is." "Whatever this is?" I held the iPad up slightly so he could see my face better. "You mean asking why my wife had a visitor sticker with your name on it at 9:12 at night?" The silence that followed was not surprise. It was calculation. Derek leaned back in his chair. "Leah," he said softly, and my stomach turned because he said her name like it belonged in his mouth. "Tell him." Leah's eyes went wide for a half-second, then she forced them flat again. "Derek, stop," she said, but it didn't sound like a boundary. It sounded like a plea. I stared at her. "Tell me what?" Derek looked straight at me. "Ethan, you want the truth? Fine. She came to me because you weren't answering. She came because she was scared. She asked what HR was saying, what the process was, how to protect your family. That's it." "Then why did you text her?" "Handle it," I said. Derek's mouth tightened. "Because you were escalating. You were involving people who didn't need to be involved." My laugh came out ugly. "My family? My brother? My mother? They don't need to be involved in the thing that just took my job and almost put my dad back in the ICU?" Derek's eyes sharpened. "Don't be dramatic." Leah reached for the iPad again, faster now. I pulled it away and her fingers scraped my wrist. Her nails left a thin sting. On the screen, Derek's face changed. For the first time, he looked angry. "Ethan," he said, voice lower, "I'm going to say this once. Stop making noise. Let HR do its job. Let me do mine. If you keep pushing, you're going to lose everything." There it was, not advice. A threat dressed as concern. I forced my voice to stay even. "Why do you care what I lose?" Derek held my gaze through the camera. "Because I don't want to see you ruin yourself." Leah swallowed hard. Her hand went to her phone in her pocket like she needed something to hold on to. "Enough," she whispered. "Please." The iPad chimed. Another notification layered over Derek's face. A message preview from a group chat I'd never been in, labeled Northgate PTA Moms. The little snippet was enough to make my skin crawl. "Cassie, just a heads up, Ethan is unstable. Keep your kids away." I stared at it like it was written in blood. Leah's eyes flicked to the notification, then away so fast it felt like confirmation. "That's not—" she started. Derek saw my expression. "What?" he asked, sharp. I tilted the screen so he could see the notification. "This," I said. "This is what you mean by handle it?" Leah's voice went brittle. "Cassie is overreacting." "Cassie doesn't have my phone number," I said. "Cassie doesn't know my work situation unless someone told her." Leah's cheeks flushed. "I told her you were stressed. I told her not to bother you." "You told her I'm unstable," Jonah's voice said suddenly, loud through my phone speaker. I jerked and realized my phone had been ringing in my pocket. I'd answered it without thinking when I saw the caller ID, Jonah. He'd heard everything through the iPad's echo and my own speaker overlap. "What?" Leah said, too sharp. Jonah's voice was raw. "Dad's awake. He asked for Ethan. And now I'm hearing Derek's voice in my brother's kitchen like it's normal." Derek's eyes flicked again, not to Leah this time. Away, as if he'd just spotted a camera he forgot about. "This is inappropriate," he said quickly. "Ethan, end the call." "No," I said. Leah stepped closer, face tight. "Hang up," she hissed. "Now." I held the iPad up between us like a shield. "You're worried about my job," I said to Derek, "but you're texting my wife. My wife's friends are smearing me and you're calling my house. You want me quiet. Why?" Derek's jaw flexed. "Because HR has procedures. Because allegations turn into lawsuits. Because you don't understand the consequences." "Tell me the consequences," I said. For half a second, Derek looked like he might actually say something real. Then his eyes cut to Leah again, and the moment vanished. Leah's phone buzzed. She looked at it. Her mouth parted slightly like she'd been punched with a silent message. She locked it immediately. "What?" I demanded. "Nothing," she said automatically. I stepped closer. "Leah." She shoved her phone deeper into her pocket. "Ethan, stop." Derek's voice went cold. "I'm done with this." He leaned closer to his camera. "You want to play hero? Fine. But understand this. If you accuse people without proof, HR will see it as retaliation. It will not help you." "Proof?" I said, and my voice shook now. "Like the fake text screenshots? Like the cropped numbers?" Derek's eyes narrowed. "Watch your mouth." That sent a jolt through me. Not fear, clarity. He wasn't talking like a boss managing an employee. He was talking like a man guarding a secret. The doorbell camera chimed from our living room. 2 quick tones that made my spine go stiff. The little screen by the entryway lit up automatically, showing the hallway outside our apartment. 2 uniformed officers stood there with the building's security guy. One officer held a small notepad. The other had one hand resting near his radio. I looked at Leah. She looked at the camera feed and didn't act surprised. Her eyes went to me, and the mask came back on so smoothly it felt practiced. "Don't say anything stupid," she whispered almost kindly. "Let me talk." On the iPad, Derek's face froze for a beat. Then he said very softly, "Leah, what did you do?" And before I could answer anyone, before I could even breathe, the knocking started, firm and official, shaking our door like the whole building had been waiting for permission to come into my life. The knocking didn't stop. It came in sets of 3, firm enough to make the deadbolt tremble. Leah moved first because she always moved first. She walked to the door like she owned the hallway, her shoulders square, her voice already softened for an audience. I followed a step behind, the iPad still in my hands, Derek's face frozen on the screen. His eyes narrowed, his mouth half open like he'd been caught mid-command. When I opened the door, 2 officers stood there with our building security guy between them, rain dripping off their caps. The older officer gave me a look that wasn't hostile, just tired. "Sir, we got a call about a domestic situation," he said, a concern for safety. Leah slid slightly in front of me. "He's fine," she said quickly. "He's just not himself. He's on administrative leave, he's been spiraling, and he's going through my devices." The quiet horror wasn't the words. It was how easily she said them. How practiced. Like she'd rehearsed in the mirror while my dad was in a hospital bed. "I'm right here," I said, "and I'm calm. I didn't call you." The younger officer's eyes flicked to my hands. "What's that?" The iPad chimed softly in my grip. Derek's face moved again, alive, watching. He could see the blue uniforms. He could hear the hallway echo. Leah noticed the sound, and her hand came up instinctively like she wanted to cover the iPad's mouth. The older officer held up a palm. "Okay, let's do this clean. Sir, can you step into the hallway with me for a second? Ma'am, you stay inside with the other officer." Leah's nails found my sleeve again. "Don't," she whispered. "Please." I stepped out anyway. The hallway smelled like wet carpet and someone's cooking oil. The building security guy stood off to the side, awkward, eyes wide like he'd just been dragged into a family's private collapse. Behind me, Leah's voice started up immediately, soft, controlled, full of careful concern. "She's making it sound like I'm unstable," I said to the older officer. My voice didn't shake, which almost scared me more. "I'm not. She's coordinating with my boss, and now my community is smearing me." The officer's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. "Your boss?" I swallowed. "He's on that iPad. Right now." The officer glanced past my shoulder toward the doorway, then back to me. "Okay, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Has anyone threatened you?" I didn't want to say yes, because saying yes made it real in a new way. But my phone was in my pocket and the voicemail sat there like a bruise. "Yes," I said. "I got a voicemail last night. It said, 'Stop making this loud. Keep your mouth shut.'" He held out his hand. "Can I hear it?" I played it. Just a few seconds in the cold hallway. The words sounded even uglier out loud, like a man leaning close to my ear. The officer's jaw tightened. "That's not okay." Behind us, inside the apartment, I heard Leah's tone change. Less soothing, more urgent. Then the iPad speaker popped louder through the cracked doorway. "Leah!" Derek's voice snapped, stripped of the smooth manager polish. "Why are there cops at his door?" Everything in me went still. The younger officer inside said, "Ma'am, who is Derek?" Leah answered too fast. "His supervisor. He's trying to help." Derek's face appeared in the doorway as Leah shifted, the iPad now angled toward the officers whether she wanted it or not. His eyes went wide when he realized he was visible. "No," Derek said immediately. "No, no. Hang up. Leah, hang up." Leah's hand flew toward the screen, but I stepped back into the doorway and raised the iPad higher, like a spotlight. Derek's voice turned sharp, scared. "What did you tell them?" "We said no police. We said keep it quiet." The older officer looked at me, then at Leah, then back at the iPad. "Sir," he said slowly, "who is this man to you?" "My boss," I said. My mouth was dry. "And apparently, my wife's." Leah's face broke for half a second, pure panic. Then the mask slammed back on. "Ethan, stop," she said, voice tight. "You're twisting things." Derek, realizing he'd already spoken too much, tried to recover. This is workplace," he said. "He's under investigation. He's unstable. He's retaliating." The building's security guy made a small sound, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing in his own hallway. The older officer didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Mr. Derek," he said toward the iPad like it was a suspect in an interrogation room, "are you threatening this man?" Derek froze. His eyes flicked to Leah again. Always Leah, like she was supposed to save him. Leah reached for the iPad. I pulled it back. "You were texting her," I said, the words coming out low and ugly. "You told her to handle it. You told her I was connecting dots. You had her come to your building at night. You had her friends call me unstable, and now you've got cops at my door." Leah's voice cracked just once. "I did it to protect us." "From what?" I shot back. "From me having a spine?" The younger officer looked at Leah, then at me. "Ma'am," he said, "did you call for a welfare check?" Leah's eyes flickered. "I called because I was scared," she said, and this time the fear sounded real, but not the fear of being hurt, the fear of losing control of the story. Derek's face twisted. "Leah," he said, furious and pleading at the same time, "you promised you deleted everything." I felt my blood drain out of my face. Deleted everything. The older officer held up his hand again, firm. "Okay, everybody stop talking over each other." He turned to Leah. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you once. Is there any immediate danger in this home?" Leah stared at him, then at me, and I could see it. The calculation of what would win. Tears were a tool she hadn't used yet, and now they arrived right on cue, glassing her eyes. "No," she whispered, "but he's He's not thinking straight." I looked at her and felt something in me finally detach, clean and quiet. "You called them to make me look dangerous," I said, "so nobody would believe me when I told the truth." Jonah chose that moment to burst in from the stairwell, breathless, rain on his hair, eyes wild. He'd left the hospital, and the fact that he was here told me Dad had asked again and again, and Jonah couldn't stand being powerless. "What the hell is going on?" Jonah demanded, seeing the officers, seeing Leah's tears, seeing my face. The scene locked into one brutal, thumbnail-ready frame. 2 officers in the doorway, Jonah stepping in with anger on his face, the building security guy hovering behind them, Leah on the right with her phone clutched like a weapon, and me in the middle holding the iPad up like evidence. On the screen, Derek's face, pale and trapped, his office blinds behind him like prison bars. The younger officer gently guided Jonah back a step. "Sir, we're handling it." Derek's eyes darted, and I could see him thinking the same thing I was. Too many witnesses now. Too many people who could repeat what they heard. He tried one last time. "Ethan," he said, lowering his voice, "end the call. We can fix this. You don't want to lose your benefits." My stomach clenched at the word benefits. Dad's meds, my mom's stability, the roof over all of us. Derek knew exactly where to press. I stared straight into the camera. "You already tried to make me lose everything," I said, "and you used my wife to do it." Leah made a small choking sound, half anger, half grief. I didn't mean, but her phone buzzed right then, loud in the silence, and she flinched. The screen lit up in her palm before she could hide it. Derek. "Turn him again, or we're done." The older officer's eyes dropped to it. He didn't need me to narrate anymore. Leah's face went white. Derek saw it too, saw the officer's gaze, and his expression collapsed into something raw and scared. "Leah," he whispered, and it sounded nothing like a boss. It sounded like a man realizing his secret just stepped into daylight. He disconnected the call. The iPad went dark, reflecting my own face back at me. Tired, wet-eyed, older than I'd been a week ago. The officers didn't arrest anyone. Real life isn't that clean. They separated us, took a report, told Leah that filing a false welfare check could have consequences, told me to document threats and contact HR through official channels, told Jonah to calm down before he got himself cuffed. After they left, the apartment felt bigger and emptier at the same time. Leah stood by the sink, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. My mom sat on the couch staring at nothing, as if her mind had finally found a corner quiet enough to break in. Jonah paced, muttering. I knew it. Over and over like he needed repetition to keep from exploding. Leah didn't confess in a dramatic speech. She did it the way she did everything, piecemeal, trying to control the damage. "It didn't start like that," she said, voice thin. "I was scared about money, about your dad, about you getting swallowed by it. Derek listened. Derek said he could help." "Help," I repeated. She wiped her face quickly, angry at her own tears. "He said, if I got you to stop pushing back, if you just cooperated, he could keep your job safe. He said the company needed a scapegoat because inventory was missing and the finance logs were—" I felt the room tilt. So he stole, and he pinned it on me. Leah's silence was the answer. "And you," I said, my voice breaking for the first time, "helped him." She flinched like she wanted to deny it, but the denial couldn't survive the texts, the voicemail, the visitor sticker, the cops at the door. She just whispered, "I thought I was saving us." I stood there in our kitchen, staring at the pill organizer still open on the counter, at the crumpled receipt, at my keys, at the space where our life used to feel safe. Somewhere across town, my dad lay under fluorescent hospital light, asking for me, and my wife had been spending her fear on another man. That night, I slept on Jonah's couch. The next morning, I emailed HR one sentence like Leah had wanted, only I added attachments. The voicemail, screenshots of Derek's messages to Leah that I'd photographed when her phone lit up, and a written statement that said, "Plainly, I believed my supervisor was coercing my spouse and orchestrating retaliation." A week later, HR cleared my name in writing. 2 weeks after that, Derek's company badge stopped working the same way mine had. Red light. One flat beep. I didn't feel victory when I heard. I felt tired. Leah moved her things out quietly while I was at the hospital with Dad. When I came home, her side of the closet was a blank strip of air. On the kitchen counter, she'd left my wedding ring in a mug like it was something she didn't want to touch anymore. No note, no apology that mattered. Just absence. I picked up the ring, felt its weight in my palm, and realized the war hadn't been one big explosion. It had been 1,000 small decisions to control me, isolate me, rewrite me, until I didn't recognize my own life. And now, finally, I did.